So in this video, I'll be doing a demo for the vector illustration assignment prompt. And here I am choosing some variation on the first prompt, which is birds or snakes or rats or sharks attacking a victim. You've already seen a little bit of the development of this composition in some of the other demo videos. So at this point, I'm just kind of making some adjustments to the background composition, seeing if I could add sort of some like rays coming out of that sun shape in the background. One tip as you're working, if you want to hide what's outside the artboard, you can click on View, Trim View from the menu bar, and that will basically just crop off the shapes, even though they will still be there. So I found that helpful as I was making this composition. So I didn't end up keeping any of these compositional changes that I'm making in the background here, but I do really love in Illustrator how easy it is to make those flexible changes and see if I like them or not. Here I'm just making some changes to the color palette using my global swatches and just making some small adjustments with my direct selection tool to some of those anchor points. Then going on to trying different color schemes, not necessarily changing the palette, but changing which of the shapes are colored with which color. Again, I didn't really like that change, so I ended up deciding not to do it. And so my thinking here was to have these kind of two diagonals, almost like an X-shape composition, where almost any one of these creatures here could be about to attack the other one. So kind of riffing off of that theme of being attacked versus being the attacker. At this point, I wanted to introduce into the composition one more element. So I want a scorpion there down in the lower right corner behind that rock. And so I'm going back to this other demo file, finishing out that tracing of this scorpion, again, just using the layer stacking that we've been focusing on. And this ended up being more detailed than I actually needed, but it was really helpful to do this detailed of a tracing because it really helped me to understand the structure of this scorpion and then make changes to it later as I found that I needed to simplify it. So just using the pen tool here, tracing around each of the individual parts, using my layering to adjust the composition and get each of the individual elements covering over each other as they should. So you can see I'm tracing here and adjusting the positioning of the layers. So I'm just copying that into my main composition. At this point, I'm just tweaking a little bit of that scorpion shape. I found that I needed to adjust it to sort of match up with a little bit of the perspective that's going on in this picture and just make it look like it was sitting in place. Like I mentioned, though, I quickly found that this was just way too detailed and just didn't really match up with the graphic style of the rest of the composition. So I decided to trace over it one more time using much simpler shapes and just taking advantage of some of the stroke styling strategies that we covered in a different video to give a little bit of variation, but just not as much as the original tracing. So that's another great thing about working in Illustrator. You're not locked into sort of all of the photographic detail. It makes simplification really easy and makes it easy to just edit out parts that aren't helpful to getting your idea across. So you can see a little bit more simplified. Then I spent some time adjusting all the shadows, seeing if different angles worked well. I found that I ended up preferring sort of an artificial arrangement of the shadows, so you can see in the sort of background, those rock shadows are all going basically the wrong direction, but compositionally it ended up working, and I think it emphasized some of the parts of the overall composition that I was more interested in. So here you can see I'm just zooming back, looking at everything, making a few last tweaks, and otherwise I'm pretty happy with this composition.